Part 2 of Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus, translated by Theodore Alois Buckley. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Enter Io.
What land is this? What race? Whom shall I say I here behold storm-tossed in rocky fetters? Of what trespass is the retribution destroying thee? Declare to me into what part of earth I forlorn have roamed. Ah, me, alas, alas, again the hornet stings me miserable. O earth, avert the goblin of earth-born Argus. I am terrified at the sight of the neatherd of 1,000 eyes, for he is journeying on, keeping a cunning glance, whom not even after death does earth conceal. But issuing forth from among the departed, he chases me miserable, and he makes me to wander famished along the shingled strand, while the sounding wax-compacted pipe drones on a sleepy strain. Oh, ye powers! Oh, powers! Whither do my far-roaming wanderings convey me? In what, O son of Saturn, hast thou, having found me transgressing, shackled me in these pangs? Ah, and art thus wearing out a timorous wretch frenzied with sting-driven fear? Burn me with fire, or bury me in earth, or give me for food to the monsters of the deep, and grudge me not these prayers, O king. Amply have my much-traversed wanderings harassed me, nor can I discover how I may avoid pain. Hearest thou the address of the ox-horned maiden?
How can I fail to hear the damsel that is frenzy-driven by the hornet, the daughter of Inachus, who warms the heart of Jupiter with love, and now, abhorred of Juno, is driven perforce courses of exceeding length?
From whence utterest thou the name of my father? Tell me, the woe-begone, who thou art, who, I say, O hapless one, that hast thus correctly accosted me miserable, and hast named the heaven-inflicted disorder which wastes me, fretting with its maddening stings? Ah, violently driven by the famishing tortures of my boundings, have I come a victim to the wrathful counsels of Juno. And of the ill-fated who are there, me, that endure woes such as mine? But do thou clearly define to me what remains for me to suffer, what salve, what remedy there is for my malady. Discover to me, if at all thou knowest. Speak, tell it to the wretched roaming damsel.
I will tell thee clearly everything which thou desirest to learn, not interweaving riddles, but in plain language, as it is right to open the mouth to friends. Thou seest him that bestowed fire on mortals, Prometheus.
O thou that didst dawn a common benefit upon mortals, wretched Prometheus, as penance for what offence art thou thus suffering?
I have just ceased lamenting my own pangs.
Wilt thou not then accord to me this boon?
Say what it is that thou art asking, for thou mightest learn everything from me.
Say who it was that bound thee fast in this cleft.
The decree of Jupiter, but the hand of Vulcan.
And for what offences art thou paying the penalty?
Thus much alone is all that I can clearly explain to thee.
At least, in addition to this, discover what time shall be to me woe-worn the limit of my wanderings.
Not to learn this is better for thee than to learn it.
Yet conceal not from me what I am to endure.
Nay, I grudge thee not this gift.
Why then delayest thou to utter the whole?
'Tis not reluctance, but I am loath to shock thy feelings.
Do not be more anxious on my account than is agreeable to me.
Since thou art eager, I must needs tell thee. Attend thou.
Not yet, however, but grant me also a share of the pleasure. Let us first learn the malady of this maiden, from her own tale of her destructive fortunes. But for the sequel of her afflictions, let her be informed by thee.
It is thy part, Io, to minister to the gratification of these now before thee, both for all other reasons, and that they are the sisters of thy father. since to weep and lament over misfortunes, when one is sure to win a tear from the listeners, is well worth the while.
I know not how I should disobey you, and in a plain tale ye shall learn everything that ye desire, and yet I am pained even to speak of the tempest that hath been sent upon me from heaven, and the utter marring of my person, whence it suddenly came upon me, a wretched creature. For nightly visions thronging to my maiden chamber would entice me with smooth words. O damsel, greatly fortunate, why dost thou live long time in maidenhood, when it is in thy power to achieve a match the very noblest? For Jupiter is fired by thy charms with the shaft of passion, and longs with thee to share in love. But do not, my child, spurn away from thee the couch of Jupiter, but go forth to Lerna's fertile mead, to the folds and ox stalls of thy father, that the eye of Jove may have respite from its longing. By dreams such as these was I unhappy beset every night, until at length I made bold to tell my sire of the dreams that haunted me by night. And he dispatched both to Pytho and Dodona many a messenger to consult the oracles, that he might learn what it behooved him to do or say, so as to perform what was well pleasing to the divinities. And they came, bringing a report back of oracles ambiguously worded, indistinct and obscurely delivered. But at last a clear response came to Inachus, plainly charging and directing him to thrust me forth both from my home and my country, to stay an outcast to earth's remotest limits, and that, if he would not, a fiery-visaged thunderbolt would come from Jupiter and utterly blot out his whole race. Overcome by oracles of Loxias such as these, unwilling did me expel and exclude me unwilling from his dwelling, but the bit of Jupiter perforce constrained him to do this. And straightway my person and my mind were distorted, and horned, as ye see, stung by the keenly biting fly, I rushed with maniac boundings to the sweet stream of Curchneia, and the fountain of Lerna, and the earth-born neathered Argus of untempered fierceness kept dogging me, peering after my footsteps with thick-set eyes. Him, however, an unlooked-for sudden fate bereaved of life, but I, hornet-stricken, am driven by the scourge divine from land to land. Thou hearest what has taken place, and if thou art able to say what pangs there remain for me, declare them, and do not, compassionating me, warm me with false tales, for I pronounce fabricated statements to be a most foul malady.
Forbear! Alas! Never, never did I expect that a tale so strange would come to my ears, or that sufferings thus horrible to witness and horrible to endure, outrages, terrors with their two-edged goad, would chill my spirit. Alas! Alas! O fate! Fate! I shudder as I behold the condition of Io.
Prematurely, however, art thou sighing, and art full of terror. Hold until thou shalt also have heard the residue.
Say on, inform me fully. To the sick, indeed, it is sweet to get a clear knowledge beforehand of the sequel of their sorrows.
Your former desire at any rate ye gained from me easily. For first of all ye desired to be informed by her recital of the affliction that attaches to herself. Now give ear to the rest, what sort of sufferings it is the fate of this young damsel before you to undergo at the hand of Juno. Thou too, seed of Inachus, lay to heart my words, that thou mayest be fully informed of the termination of thy journey. In the first place, after turning thyself from this spot toward the rising of the sun, traverse unploughed fields, and thou wilt reach the wandering Scythians, who, raised from off the ground, inhabit wicker dwellings on well-wheeled cars, equipped with distant shooting bows, to whom thou must not draw near, but pass on out of their land, bringing thy feet to approach the rugged, roaring shores. And on thy left hand dwell the Chalybes, workers of iron, of whom thou must needs beware, for they are barbarous and not accessible to strangers. And thou wilt come to the river Hebristes, not falsely so called, which do not thou cross, for it is not easy to ford, until thou shalt have come to Caucasus itself, loftiest of mountains, where from its very brow the river spouts forth its might. And surmounting its peaks, that neighbour on the stars, thou must go into a southward track, where thou wilt come to the man-detesting host of Amazons, who hereafter shall make a settlement, Themyscira, on the banks of Thermodon, where lies the rugged Salmodesian sea gorge, a host by mariners hated, a step-dame to ships. And they will conduct thee on thy way, and that right willingly. Thou shalt come, too, to the Cimmerian isthmus, hard by the very portals of a lake, with narrow passage, which thou undauntedly must leave, and cross the Maeotic frith. And there shall exist for evermore among mortals a famous legend concerning thy passage, and after thy name it shall be called the Bosphorus. And after having quitted European ground, thou shalt come to the Asiatic continent. Does not then the sovereign of the gods seem to you to be violent alike toward all things? For he, a god, lusting to enjoy the charms of this mortal fair one, hath cast upon her these wanderings, and a bitter wooer, maiden, hast thou found for thy hand. For think that the words which thou hast now heard are not even for a prelude.
Woe is me! Ah, ah!
Thou too in thy turn art crying out and moaning. What wilt thou do then when thou learnest the residue of thy ills?
What? Hast thou aught of suffering left to tell to her?
Ay, a tempestuous sea of baleful calamities.
What gain then is it for me to live? But why did I not quickly fling myself from this rough precipice, that dashing on the plain I had rid myself of all my pangs? For better is it once to die than all one's days to suffer ill.
Verily thou wouldst hardly bear the agonies of me to whom it is not doomed to die, for this would be an escape from sufferings. But now there is no limit set to my hardships, until Jove shall have been deposed from his tyranny.
What? Is it possible that Jupiter should ever fall from his power?
Glad wouldst thou be, I ween, to witness this event.
And how not so, I who through Jupiter am suffering ill?
Well then, thou mayest assure thyself of these things that they are so.
By whom is he to be despoiled of his sceptre of tyranny?
Himself, by his own senseless counsels.
In what manner? Specify it, if there be no harm.
He will make such a match as he shall one day rue.
Celestial or mortal? If it may be spoken, tell me.
But why ask its nature? For it is not a matter that I can communicate to you.
Is it by a consort that he is to be ejected from his throne?
Yes, surely one that shall give birth to a son mightier than the father.
And has he no refuge from this misfortune?
Not he, indeed, before at any rate I, after being liberated from my shackles.
Who then is he that shall liberate thee in despite of Jupiter?
It is ordained that it shall be one of thine own descendants.
How sayest thou? Shall child of mine release thee from thy ills?
Yes, the third of thy lineage in addition to 10 other generations.
This prophecy of thine is no longer easy for me to form a guess upon.
Nor seek thou to know overwell thine own pangs.
Do not, after proffering me a benefit, withhold it from me.
I will freely grant thee one of 2 disclosures.
Explain to me first of what sort they are, and allow me my choice.
I allow it thee, for choose whether I shall clearly tell to thee the residue of thy troubles, or who it is that is to be my deliverer.
Of these twain do thou vouchsafe to bestow the one boon on this damsel, and the other on me, and disdain thou not my request. To her tell the rest of her wanderings, and to me him that is to deliver thee, for this I long to hear.
Seeing that ye are eagerly bent upon it, I will not oppose your wishes, so as not to utter everything as much as ye desire. To thee in the first place, Io, will I describe thy mazy wanderings, which do thou engrave on the recording tablets of thy mind. When thou shalt have crossed the stream that is the boundary of the continents, to the ruddy realms of morn where walks the sun, having passed over the roaring swell of the sea, until thou shalt reach the Gorgonian plains of Sistine, where dwell the Phorcides, 3 swan-like aged damsels, that possess one eye in common, that have but a single tooth, on whom ne'er doth the sun glance with his rays, nor the nightly moon. And hard by are three winged sisters of these, the snake-tressed Gorgons, abhorred of mortals, whom none of human race can look upon and retain the breath of life. Such is this caution which I mention to thee. Now lend an ear to another hideous spectacle, for be on thy guard against the keen-fanged hounds of Jupiter that never bark, the griffins, and the cavalry host of one-eyed Arimaspians, who dwell on the banks of the gold-gushing fount, the stream of Pluto. Go not thou nigh to these. And thou wilt reach a far-distant land, a dark tribe, who dwell close upon the fountains of the sun, where is the river Ethiops. Along the banks of this wend thy way, until thou shalt have reached the cataract, where from the Bybline mountains the Nile pours forth his hallowed, grateful stream. This will guide thee to the triangular land of the Nile, where at length, Io, it is ordained for thee and thy children after thee to found the distant colony. And if aught of this is obscurely uttered, and hard to be understood, question me anew, and learn it thoroughly and clearly. As for leisure, I have more than I desire.
If indeed thou hast aught to tell of her baleful wanderings that still remains or hath been omitted, say on. But if thou hast told the whole, give to us in our turn the favour which we ask, and you, perchance, remember.
She hath heard the full term of her journeying, and that she may not know that she hath not been listening to me in vain, I will relate what hardships she endured before she came hither, giving her this as a sure proof of my statements. The very great multitude indeed of words I shall omit, and I will proceed to the termination itself of thine aberrations. For after that thou had come to the Molossian plains, and about the lofty ridge of Dodona, where is the oracular seat of Thesprotian Jove, and a portent passing belief, the speaking oaks by which thou wast clearly and without any ambiguity saluted, illustrious spouse of Jove that art to be, if aught of this hath any charms for thee. Thence madly rushing along the seaside track, thou didst dart away to the vast bay of Rhea, from which thou art tempest-driven in retrograde courses, and in time to come know well that the gulf of the deep shall be called Ionian, a memorial of thy passage to all mortals. These hast thou as tokens of my intelligence, how that it perceives somewhat beyond what appears. The rest I shall tell both to you and to her in common, after reaching the very identical track of my former narrative. There is on the land's utmost edge a city Canopus, hard by the Nile's very mouth and alluvial dyke. On this spot Jupiter at length makes thee sane by merely soothing and touching thee with his unalarming hand, and named after the progeniture of Jupiter thou shalt give birth to swarthy Epaphus, who shall reap the harvest of all the land which the wide-streaming Nile waters. But fifth in descent from him, a generation of 50 virgins shall again come to Argos, not of their own accord, fleeing from incestuous wedlock with their cousins. And these, with fluttering hearts, like falcons left not far behind by doves, shall come pursuing marriage such as should not be pursued. But heaven shall be jealous over their persons, and Pelasgia shall receive them after being crushed by a deed of night-fenced daring, wrought by woman's hand. For each bride shall bereave her respective husband of life, having died in their throats a sword of twin sharp edge. Would that in guise like this Venus might visit my foes! But tenderness shall soften one of the maidens, so that she shall not slay the partner of her couch, but shall be blunt in her resolve. And of the two alternatives she shall choose the former, to be called a coward rather than a murderess. She in Argos shall give birth to a race of kings. There needs a long discourse to detail these things distinctly, but from this seed be sure shall spring a dauntless warrior, renowned in archery, who shall set me free from these toils. Such predictions did my aged mother, the Titaness Themis, rehearse to me, but how and when? To tell this requires a long detail, and thou in knowing it all wouldst be in naught a gainer.
Ilileo, once more the spasm and maddening frenzies inflame me, and the sting of the hornet, wrought by no fire, envenoms me, and with panic my heart throbs violently against my breast. My eyes too are rolling in a mazy whirl, and I am carried out of my course by the raging blast of madness, having no control of tongue, but my troubled words dash idly against the surges of loathsome calamity.
Exit Io.
Wise was the man, aye, wise indeed, who first weighed well this maxim, and with his tongue published it abroad, that to match in one's own degree is best by far, and that one who lives by labour should woo the hand neither of any that have waxed wanton in opulence, nor of such as pride themselves on nobility of birth. Never, O destinies, never may ye behold me approaching as a partner the couch of Jupiter, nor may I be brought to the arms of any bridegroom from among the sons of heaven. For I am in dread when I behold the maiden Io, contented with no mortal lover, greatly marred by wearisome wanderings at the hand of Juno. For myself, indeed, inasmuch as wedlock on one's own level is free from apprehension, I feel no alarm. And oh, never may the love of the mightier gods cast on me a glance that none can elude. This at least is a war without a conflict, accomplishing things impossible, nor know I what might become of me, for I see not how I could evade the counsel of Jove.
Yet truly shall Jove, albeit he is self-willed in his temper, be lowly, in such wedlock is he prepared to wed, as shall hurl him out of his sovereignty, and off his throne a forgotten thing, and the curse of his father Saturn shall then at length find entire consummation, which he imprecated when he was deposed from his ancient throne. From disasters such as these there is no one of the gods beside myself that can clearly disclose to him a way of escape. I know this, and by what means. Wherefore let him rest on in his presumption, putting confidence in his thunders aloft, brandishing in his hand a fire-breathing bolt, for not one jot shall these suffice to save him from falling dishonoured in a downfall beyond endurance. Such an antagonist is he now with his own hands preparing against himself, a portent that shall baffle all resistance, who shall invent a flame more potent than the lightning, and a mighty din that shall surpass the thunder, and shall shiver the ocean trident, that earth-convulsing pest, the spear of Neptune. And when he hath stumbled upon this mischief, he shall be taught how great is the difference between sovereignty and slavery.
Thou, forsooth, art boding against Jupiter the things thou wishest.
Things that shall come to pass, and that I desire to boot.
And are we to expect that any one will get the mastery of Jove?
Ay, and pangs too, yet harder to bear than these of mine, shall he sustain.
And how is it that thou art not dismayed, blurting out words such as these?
Why, at what should I be terrified, to whom it is not destined to die?
Yet perchance he will provide for thee affliction more grievous than even this.
Let him do it then. All is foreseen by me.
They that do homage to Oresteia are wise.
Do homage, make thy prayer, cringe to each ruler of the day. I care for Jove less than nothing. Let him do, let him lord it for this brief span, e'en as he list, for not long shall he rule over the gods. But no more, for I descry Jove's courier close at hand, the menial of the new monarch. Beyond all doubt he has come to announce to us some news.
Enter Mercury.
Thee, the contriver, thee full of guile and bitterness, who sinned against gods by bestowing their honours on creatures of a day, the thief of fire, I address. The sire commands thee to divulge of what nuptials it is that thou art wanting, by means of which he is to be put down from his power. And these things, moreover, without any kind of mystery, but each exactly as it is, do thou tell out, and entail not upon me, Prometheus, a double journey, and thou perceivest that by such conduct Jove is not softened.
High-sounding, i'faith, and full of haughtiness is thy speech, as beseems a lackey of the gods. Young in years, ye are young in power, and ye fancy forsooth that ye dwell in a citadel impregnable against sorrow. Have I not known 2 monarchs dethroned from it, and the third that now is ruler I shall also see expelled, most foully and most quickly? Seem I to thee in aught to be dismayed at, and to crouch beneath the new gods? Widely, ay, altogether do I come short of such feelings. But do thou hie thee back the way by which thou camest, for not one tittle shalt thou learn of the matter on which thou questionest me.
Yet truly it was by such self-will even before now that thou didst bring thyself to such a calamitous mooring.
Be well assured that I would not barter my wretched plight for thy drudgery, for better do I deem it to be a lackey to this rock, than to be born the confidential courier of Father Jove. Thus is it meet to repay insult in kind.
Thou seemst to revel in thy present state.
Revel? Would that I might see my foes thus revelling, and among these I reckon thee.
What dost thou impute to me also any blame for thy mischances?
In plain truth I detest all the gods, as many of them as, after having received benefits at my hands, are iniquitously visiting me with evils.
I hear thee raving with no slight disorder.
Disordered I would be, if disorder it be to loathe one's foes.
Thou wouldst be beyond endurance, wert thou in prosperity.
Woe's me!
This word of thine Joe knows not,
Ay, but time as he grows old teaches all things.
and yet verily thou knowest not yet how to be discreet.
No, i'faith, or I should not have held parley with thee, menial as thou art.
Thou seemst disposed to tell naught of the things which the sire desires.
In sooth, being under obligation as I am to him, I am bound to return his favour.
Thou flutest me, forsooth, as if I were a boy?
Why, art thou not a boy, and yet sillier than one, if thou lookest to obtain any information from me? There is no outrage nor artifice by which Jupiter shall bring me to utter this, before my torturing shackles shall have been loosened. Wherefore let his glowing lightning be hurled, and with the white feathered shower of snow, and the thunderings beneath the earth, let him confound and embroil the universe. For naught of these things shall bend me so much as even to say by whom it is doomed that he shall be put down from his sovereignty.
Consider now whether this determination seems availing.
Long since has this been considered and resolved.
Resolve, O vain one, resolve at length in consideration of thy present sufferings to come to thy right senses.
Thou troublest me with thine admonitions as vainly as thou mightest a billow. Never let it enter your thoughts that I, affrighted by the purpose of Jupiter, shall become womanish, and shall importune the object whom I greatly loathe, with effeminate upliftings of my hands, to release me from these shackles. I want much of that.
With all that I have said, I seem to be speaking to no purpose, for not one whit art thou melted or softened in thy heart by entreaties, but art champing the bit like a colt fresh yoked, and struggling against thy reins. But on the strength of an impotent scheme art thou thus violent, for obstinacy in one not soundly wise, itself by itself availeth less than nothing. And mark, if thou art not persuaded by my words, what a tempest and threefold surge of wills, from which there is no escape, will come upon thee. For in the first place, the sire will shiver the craggy cleft with thunder, and blaze of his bolt, and will overwhelm thy body, and a clasping arm of rock shall bear thee up, and after thou shalt have passed through its close a long space of time, thou shalt come back into the light, and a winged hound of Jupiter, a blood-thirsting eagle, shall ravenously mangle thy huge lacerated frame, stealing upon thee an unbidden guest, and tarrying all the livelong day, and shall banquet his fill on the black viands of thy liver. To such labours look thou for no termination, until some god shall appear as a substitute in thy pangs, and shall be willing to go both to the gloomy hades and to the murky depths around Tartarus. Wherefore advise thee, since this is no fictitious want, but uttered in great earnestness, for the divine mouth knows not how to utter falsehood, but will bring thy every word to pass. But do thou look around and reflect, and never for a moment deem pertinacity better than discretion.
To us, indeed, Mercury seems to propose no unseasonable counsel, for he bids thee to abandon thy recklessness and seek out wise consideration. Be persuaded, for to a wise man 'tis disgraceful to err.
To me, already well aware of it, hath this fellow urged his message. But for a foe to suffer horribly at the hands of foes is no indignity. Wherefore let the doubly pointed wreath of his fire be hurled at me, and ether be torn piecemeal by thunder, and spasm of savage blasts. And let the wind rock earth from her base, roots and all, and with stormy surge mingle in rough tide the billow of the deep and the paths of the stars, and fling my body into black Tartarus with a whirl in the stern eddies of necessity. Yet by no possible means shall he visit me with death.
Resolutions and expressions? In truth, such as these of thine, one may hear from maniacs. For in what point doth his fate shall fall short of insanity? What doth it abate from ravings? But do ye then at any rate, that sympathize with him in his sufferings, withdraw hence speedily somewhither from the spot, lest the harsh bellowing of the thunder smite you with idiocy.
Utter and advise me to something else, in which too thou mayest prevail upon me. For in this be sure thou hast intruded a proposal not to be borne. How is it that thou urgest me to practise baseness? Along with him here I am willing to endure what is destined, for I have learned to abhor traitors, and there is no evil which I hold in greater abomination.
Well, then, bear in mind the things of which I forewarn you, and do not, when ye have been caught in the snares of Hate, Throw the blame on fortune, nor ever at any time say that Jove cast you into unforeseen calamity. No, indeed, but ye your own selves. For well aware, and not on a sudden, nor in ignorance, will ye be entangled by your senselessness in an impervious net of hate.
Exit Mercury.
And verily, indeed, and no longer in word doth the earth heave, and the roaring echo of thunder rolls bellowing by us, and deep blazing wreaths of lightning are glaring, and hurricanes whirl the dust, and blasts of all the winds are leaping forth, showing one against the other a strife of conflict gusts, and the firmament is embroiled with the deep. Such is this onslaught that is clearly coming upon me from Jove, a cause for terror. O dread majesty of my mother earth, O ether that diffusest thy common light, thou beholdest the wrongs I suffer.
End of Part 2. End of Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus, translated by Theodore Lois Buckley.